Happy? You are going to get married before me, Chinyere. What do you think people will say? That I'm not good enough? That I cannot find a husband? In the vibrant village of Umuagu, nestled between lush green hills and the shimmering bank of Unu River, lived a young woman named Nneoma. Her beauty was matched only by her sharp wit and lively spirit. She was loved by many, but her closest companion and friend was Chinyere. Their friendship, forged in childhood, was the talk of the village. They were inseparable, like the roots of the mighty Iroko tree entangled between the earth. Even though Nneoma was older than Chinyere, Nneoma and Chnyere grew up sharing everything: laughter, secrets, and dreams. Their bond was so strong that villagers often joked that they were sisters separated by birth. Nneoma was the eldest of her family, with a younger brother named Ikechukwu. Ikechukwu was handsome, kind, and hardworking, features that made him the pride of his family. As the years passed, Ikechukwu grew into a fine young man, ready to take a wife. In Umuagu, marriage was a sacred tradition. Families were bonded by the union of their children, and it was considered an honor to marry into a good family. Nneoma was aware that as the first daughter, she carried the weight of her family's expectation. She was supposed to be the first to marry, the first to bring honor to her father's name. But Nneoma, though very beautiful and intelligent, had not yet found a suitor that pleased her. She was confident that her time would come, and when it did, it would be worth the wait. One bright afternoon, as the sun cast golden ray over the village, Ikechukwu confided in Nneoma about a matter that had been weighing on his heart. He had fallen in love with someone close to Nneoma. "Sister," Ikechukwu began, his voice soft and cautious, "there is something I must tell you." Nneoma looked up from the yam she was peeling. She had never seen her brother so serious. "Go on, Ikechukwu. You know you can tell me anything," she replied. Ikechukwu hesitated, then took a deep breath. "I have been speaking with Chinyere. I want to marry her." Nneoma's heart skipped a beat. She stared at her brother, not sure she had heard him correctly. "Chinyere? Which Chinyere? My Chinyere?" "Yes," Ikechukwu continued, his eyes filled with a hopeful light. "She is everything I want in a wife. Kind, gentle, and beautiful. I love her, Nneoma." A storm of emotion swirled within Nneoma. She loved Chinyere dearly, but the thought of her best friend marrying into her family unsettled her. Chinyere, who had been her equal in everything, would now become her sister-in-law. And to add salt to her injury, Chinyere was younger than her. Nneoma feared the dynamic of their friendship would change, and jealousy began to creep into her heart. It wasn't just that Chinyere might marry into the family, it was also that Chinyere would marry before her. That she couldn't take. Nneoma forced a smile, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Are you sure about this, Ikechukwu? Have you thought it through?" Ikechukwu nodded eagerly. "I have never been more sure of anything, but I need your blessings, Nneoma. Your opinion matters to me a lot." Nneoma's mind raced. How could she bless a union that threatened to overshadow her? But she couldn't directly refuse her brother. Ikechukwu was determined, and she knew he wouldn't easily change his mind. "I need some time to think about it," Nneoma finally said, her voice strained. "This is a big decision." Ikechukwu, sensing her hesitation, nodded understandingly. "Of course, take your time. But please, sister, know that I love Chinyere deeply." As Ikechukwu left her alone, Nneoma sat in silence, her mind wondering. How could Chinyere, her closest friend, not have told her about this? How could she keep such a thing secret? Nneoma felt a pang of betrayal. Chinyere was supposed to be her confidant, yet she had kept something so important from her. That evening, as the village gathered around the central fire for stories and songs, Nneoma's thoughts were far from the stories. She watched Chinyere from across the cycle, her friends' laughter ringing out like a melody in her ears. A bitter taste filled Nneoma's mouth. Chinyere was everything she had ever wanted to be: carefree, beautiful, and now loved by Ikechukwu, her own younger brother. When the stories ended and the fire began to die down, Nneoma approached Chinyere. "Can we talk?" she asked, trying to keep her voice steady. Chinyere smiled warmly. "Of course, Nneoma. Is everything all right?" Nneoma led her friend away from the crowd to a quiet spot beneath the ancient bamboo tree that had witnessed so many of their secrets. The moonlight flittered through the leaves, casting dapple shadows on the ground. "Why didn't you tell me?" Nneoma's voice trembled with emotion. Chinyere looked confused. "Tell you what?" "About you and Ikechukwu," Nneoma blurted out. "About your plans to get married." Chinyere's eyes widened in surprise. "I didn't want to say anything until it was certain. Ikechukwu and I have only just started talking about it." Nneoma's heart ached. "We used to tell each other everything." "I didn't mean to hide it from you, Nneoma," Chinyere said softly, reaching out to touch her friend's arms. "I was going to tell you, I promise. You are like a senior sister to me, and your opinion means the whole world." But Nneoma pulled away. "Do you really want to marry my brother? Are you sure this is what you want?" Chinyere looked into Nneoma's eyes, searching for understanding. "I love Ikechukwu. I have loved him for so long. I thought you would be happy for us." Nneoma's jealousy fled. "Happy? You're going to marry before me, Chinyere. What do you think people will say? That I'm not good enough? That I cannot find a husband?" Chinyere was taken aback by the bitterness in Nneoma's voice. "This isn't a competition, Nneoma. You will find a husband too. Someone who will love you just as much as Ikechukwu loved me." But Nneoma's mind was already clouded by envy. She could not bear the thought of Chinyere, her best friend, and younger one for that matter, becoming her sister-in-law, overshadowing her in every way. Nneoma's heart hardened, and she made a decision that would set off a chain of events she could never have imagined. "Maybe you are right," Nneoma said finally, forcing a smile. "Maybe I'm just surprised. But if you are happy, then I'm happy too." Chinyere smiled, relieved. She embraced Nneoma, but as she did, she failed to notice the coldness in her friend's eyes. The seed of jealousy had been planted deep in Nneoma's heart, and soon they would begin to grow. Days turned into weeks, and the village of Umuagu was filled with the news of Ikechukwu and Chinyere's impending marriage. The villagers were very happy at the prospect of such a union. The families of both Nneoma and Chinyere were highly respected, and the marriage would only strengthen the bond between them. Preparation began in earnest, and the air was thick with the scent of celebration. Nneoma, however, found herself slipping further into the dark corner of her mind. The joy that comes from everyone around her only deepened her sense of isolation. Every smile, every congratulation felt like a dagger to her heart. How could they all be so happy when her world was crumbling around her? In the evening, when the village gathered to share stories and songs as usual, Nneoma would slip away to the edge of the forest, seeking comfort. She would sit on a fallen log, staring into the distance, her thoughts a tangled web of envy and despair. She could not understand why her friend, her Chinyere, had been blessed with such good fortune, while she, Nneoma, was left behind. One night, as the village celebrated yet another milestone In the wedding preparations, Nneoma found herself drawn to the home of an old woman who lived in the outskirts of Umuagu. The woman, known as Nwadi, was a figure of mystery. Some said she was a healer, others whispered that she was involved in witchcraft activities. Nneoma had always been scared of Nwadi, but now, in her desperation, she found herself walking towards the old woman's hut, the moon casting long shadows on the path before her. The hut was small, its thatched roof sagging with age. A thick gathering of smoke rose from the hut, and the scent of herbs hung in the air. Nneoma hesitated at the entrance, her heart pounding in her chest. She knew she was about to cross a line, one from which there would be no return. "Come in, child," a voice rasped from within the hut. Nneoma startled, her hand flying to her chest. She hadn't even knocked, yet Nwadi knew she was there. Slowly, she pushed aside the cloth that served as a door and stepped inside. The interior of the hut was dimly lighted by a single oil lamp. Shelves lined the wall, filled with jars of dried herbs, animals' bone, and other strange objects. In the center of the room, Nwadi sat on a low stool, her back bent with age, her eyes sharp and penetrating, despite the wrinkles that lined her face. Her hair, once black, was now a circled white, cascading down her shoulders like a river of snow. She looked up as Nneoma entered, her gaze seeming to pierce through to the very core of the young woman's being. "So you have finally come," Nwadi said, her voice low and gravely. "I have been expecting you." Nneoma swallowed hard. Her mouth suddenly dried. You knew I would come?" Nwadi nodded slowly. "The spirit whispered many things to me, my child. They told me of your pain, your jealousy, and your desperation. You are here because you wish to change your faith, to alter the course of destiny itself." Nneoma felt a shiver run down her spine. She had heard tales of Nwadi's powers, but now, standing before her, the old woman's knowledge felt uncertainly real. "I don't want Chinyere to marry my brother," Nneoma blurted out, her voice trembling. "I can't stand the thought of her being in my family and of her getting everything I have ever wanted. It's not fair." Nwadi studied Nneoma for a long moment, her expression unreadable. "Envy is a powerful force," she said finally. "It can consume a person, twist their hearts, and darken their soul. But it is also a tool, one that can be wields to change what it is." Nneoma's heart raced. "What do you mean? Can you help me stop this marriage?" Nwadi leaned back, her eyes narrowing. "I can help you, yes, but the path you seek is not without consequences. The spirits demand a price for meddling in the affairs of mortals. Once you sat down this road, there will be no turning back." Nneoma hesitated, the weight of Nwadi's words pressing down her heart. But the image of Chinyere, smiling and happy, marrying Ikechukwu flashed in her mind, and her heart became more hardened. "I don't care about the consequences," Nneoma said firmly. "I just want to stop this marriage. I want her to suffer as I have suffered." Nwadi's lip curled into a knowing smile. "Very well, my child. But remember, the spirits are not to be joked with. They will do as you asked, but they will also take what they are owed." The old woman rose slowly from her stool and moved to a shelf, selecting a small, intricately carved wooden box. She returned to Nneoma and handed it to her. "Inside this box," Nwadi explained, "is a powder made from the bark of the sacred Iroko tree, mixed with the essence of the nightshade and the venom of the black mamba. It is a powerful concoction, one that will bring about the suffering you seek. Use it wisely." Nneoma's hand shook as she took the box, feeling its weight in her palm. What do I do with it? Nwadi's eyes gleamed with a strange light. Sprinkle it in Chinyere's food or drink. It will not kill her, but it will bring her great sorrows. Her womb will become a barren field, unable to carry life. Each time she conceived, she will lose the child, and her spirit will be crushed. Nneoma felt a pang of fear, but she quickly pushed it aside, her jealousy drawing out all other emotion. Thank you, Nwadi. I will do as you say. The old woman nodded, her expression grave. Go on, and remember, the spirits are watching. Do not call upon them lightly. Nneoma hurried out of the hut, the box clutched tightly in her hand. As she made her way back to the village, the moon high above, she felt a strange mix of anger and fear. She had taken the first step towards changing her faith, towards ensuring that Chinyere would never know happiness in her marriage. The next morning, Nneoma put her plan into action. She invited Chinyere over for breakfast, a gesture that seemed friendly on the surface, but was covered with hidden intention. Chinyere, ever trusting, accepted the invitation with a smile, unaware of the darkness lurking beneath her friend's warm invitation. As they sat down to eat, Nneoma carefully sprinkled the powder into Chinyere's food as she excused herself to have a talk with Ikechukwu first. Her hand was steady despite the tumult in her heart. When Chinyere came back, Nneoma watched as she ate, every bite bringing Nneoma closer to her goal. Months passed, and soon after their marriage, the news spread through the village like wildfire. Chinyere was pregnant. The entire village rejoiced, celebrating the promise of a new life. Nneoma, however, felt a knot of fear tighten in her chest. The joy that filled Umuagu was like a sharp thorn in her side, a constant reminder of the terrible acts she had committed. But Nwadi's portion was very powerful, just as the old woman had promised. Within few weeks, Chinyere began to feel unwell. She grew pale and weak, and her once bright spirit was dimmed. The village healer tried everything, but nothing could prevent the inevitable. Chinyere miscarried her first pregnancy. Her heart was shattered by the loss. Nneoma felt concern, comforting Chinyere as she wept, but inside she felt a sick of satisfaction. Her plan had worked. Chinyere had been brought low, her happiness snatched away. But as the days turned into weeks and the weeks into months, Nneoma found no peace. Instead, the shadow of what she had done loomed over her, growing darker with each passing day. The villagers whispered about Chinyere's misfortune, their pity tangled with unease. Some said it was a curse. Others said that the gods were displeased with her marriage to Ikechukwu. But Nneoma knew the truth, and it weighed heavily on her soul. Despite the tragedy, Chinyere and Ikechukwu's love remained strong. They decided to try again, hoping that the gods would bless them with a child this time around. But Nneoma's jealousy had not faded away yet. Each time Chinyere conceived, Nneoma repeats the ritual, ensuring that her friend's womb remained barren. 3 times Chinyere conceived, and 3 times she lost a child. Each miscarriage was more painful than the last, draining her of hope and strength. Ikechukwu was devastated, his grief only deepening Nneoma's guilt. But by now, Nneoma was trapped in the web she had woven, unable to escape the consequences of her action. The village began to suspect that something unnatural was at play. Chinyere, once the embodiment of joy and vitality, had become a shadow of her former self. Even Ikechukwu, who had always been strong an optimist, was beginning to lose hope. One night, as Nneoma lay alone in her hut, she was visited by a strange dream. In the dream, she found herself standing before a river, its water dark and turbulent. On the other side stood Nwadi, her eyes glowing with an eager light. "The spirits are restless, Nneoma," Nwadi said, her voice echoing across the water. "They have done as you asked, but now they demand their due. You cannot escape their wrath." Nneoma awoke with a start, her heart pounding in her chest. She knew that Nwadi's warning was not to be taken lightly. The spirit has granted her her wish, but the price was yet to be paid. As the sun rose over the village of Umuagu, casting long shadows across the huts and fields, Nneoma found herself increasingly haunted by Nwadi's warning. The dream had been so vivid, so real, that she couldn't shake the feeling that something terrible was about to happen. The spirits, it seems, were no longer content to let her action go unpunished. Despite her growing unease, Nneoma continued with her daily routine. She worked in the field, tended to her chores, and tried to maintain the appearance of a normal person. But inside, her mind was a tempest, filled with fear and regret. The weight of her deed pressed down on her, suffocating her spirit. Chinyere, on the other hand, had become a shell of her former self. The joy that had once defined her had become replaced by sorrow and despair. She rarely smiled anymore, and her laughter, once so infectious, had disappeared entirely. Ikechukwu tried his best to comfort her, but even his love could not heal the wound that had been inflicted. The villagers who had once celebrated Chinyere's beauty and vitality now whispered behind her back. Some said she was cursed, others said that the gods had forsaken her. The once joyous couple had become a symbol of misfortune, and the villagers' attitude towards them began to change. Nneoma watched all of this unfold with a heavy heart. She had achieved what she had set out to do. Chinyere's happiness had been shattered, and the marriage was no longer the joyous occasion it had once promised to be. But instead of feeling satisfied, Nneoma felt hollow, as though a part of her had been lost in the process. One day, as Nneoma walked through the village, she was approached by the elderly woman named Adaeze. Adaeze was known for her wisdom and her connection to the spirit world. She had been the village spiritual guide for many years, and her counsel were often sought in times of trouble. "Nneoma," Adaeze called out, her voice strong despite her age. Nneoma turned to face the old woman, her heart skipping a beat. "Yes, Mama Adaeze." "I have seen shadows around you," Adaeze said, her gaze piercing. "They are not the shadows of the night, but those that cling to a soul burdened by dark deeds. I can sense your unrest, child. The gods speak to me, and they are not pleased." Nneoma felt a chill run down her spine. She had always respected Adaeze and knew of her reputation as a seer and spiritual guide. The old woman's words struck deep into Nneoma's heart, confirming her worst fear. "Mama Adaeze, I don't know what you mean," Nneoma replied, her voice waving. Adaeze's eyes narrowed slightly as she could see through Nneoma's facades. "You carry a heavy burden, Nneoma. The gods are troubled by the path you have chosen. They say you have tampered with forces that shouldn't be disturbed." Nneoma's mind raced. How could Adaeze know what she had done? Had the gods revealed her secrets? She felt a rising panic, but struggled to maintain her composure. "I don't understand, Mama Adaeze," Nneoma insisted, trying to sound confused rather than terrified. Adaeze stepped closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. "The gods have warned me of the suffering that had been brought upon Chinyere. They know of the darkness that has taken root in your heart. You cannot hide from the gods, Nneoma. They see all, and they demand justice. Nneoma's breath caught in her throat. She had hoped that her action would go unnoticed, that the gods would turn a blind eye to them. But now it seemed that her deed had not only been seen, but also angered the very force she had sought to control. "Please, Mama Adaeze," Nneoma pleaded, her voice barely above a whisper. "I didn't mean for things to go this way. I was just jealous and couldn't bear the thought of Chinyere marrying my brother. I didn't want her to be happier than me." Adaeze's expression softened slightly, but there was still a sternness in her eyes. "Jealousy is a poison, Nneoma. It clouds the mind and darkens the heart. But you have not only poisoned yourself, you have brought suffering upon an innocent soul. The gods will not forgive this easily." Tears welled up in Nneoma's eyes as the weight of her guilt became unbearable. "What can I do, Mama Adaeze? How can I make things right?" Adaeze was silent for a moment, as if listening to voices only she could hear. Finally she spoke. "There is a way to seek forgiveness, but it will not be easy. The gods require a sacrifice, an offering of your own soul's redemption. You must confess your sins openly to both Chinyere and the village. Only by laying bare the truth can you begin to atone for what you have done." Nneoma's heart sank. The thought of confessing her deeds, of exposing herself to the judgment of the entire village, filled her with fear. But she knew that Adaeze was right. There was no other way to escape the wrath of the gods. If she continued to hide, the consequences would only grow more severe. "Thank you, Mama Adaeze," Nneoma said, her voice shaking. "I will do as you say." Adaeze placed a hand on Nneoma's shoulder, her touch surprisingly gentle. "The path of redemption is difficult, child, but it is the only way forward. May the spirits guide you and grant you the strength to do what is right." Nneoma nodded. Though fear and uncertainty still gripped her heart, she knew that the time had come to face the consequences of her actions, no matter how painful they might be. That evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and the village gathered for their moonlight stories, Nneoma made her way to the center of the village square. Her steps were heavy, her mind swinging with anxiety. She could feel the weight of the carved wooden boss still hidden in her home, as though it was passing down on her very soul. The villagers looked up as she approaches, their conversation slowing down as they sensed something unusual. Chinyere and Ikechukwu were among them, sitting quietly by the fireside, their expression sullen. Nneoma's heart ached as she looked at her friend, so broken and disturbed, yet holding on to hope. Taking a deep breath, Nneoma stepped forward, her voice trembling as she spoke. "My people, I have something to confess. I have wronged you all, but none more than Chinyere, my dearest friend." The villagers exchanged puzzled glances, whispering among themselves. Chinyere looked up at Nneoma, confusion and concern in her eyes. "Chinyere," Nneoma continued, her voice thick with emotion, "I have envied you for a long time. When you and Ikechukwu decided to marry, I couldn't bear the thought of you being happier than me and of you getting everything I desired. My jealousy consumed me, and I decided to do something terrible." Nneoma's voice broke as she forced herself to continue. "I sought the help of Nwadi, the old woman who lives on the outskirts of the village. She gave me a potion, a curse that I used to harm you. It was I who caused your miscarriages, who brought you all this pain. I am so sorry, Chinyere. I let my envy drive me to this, and I have regretted it every day." A stunned silence fell over the village as Nneoma's words sank in. The villagers stared at her in disbelief, their expression a mix of shock, anger, and sorrow. Ikechukwu rose to his feet, his face pale with rage. "How could you, Nneoma?" he demanded, his voice shaking. "How could you do this to Chinyere, to me, to your own family?" Nneoma's tears flowed freely now, her guilt and shame overwhelming her. "I was blind by jealousy, Ikechukwu. I couldn't see past my own desire. I know that nothing I say can undo what I have done, but I beg for your forgiveness." Chinyere, who had been silent throughout Nneoma's confession, finally spoke, her voice soft and filled with pain. "Nneoma, we were like sisters. I trusted you with my heart, and you betrayed me in this worst way possible. I don't know if I can ever forgive you, but I hope you find a way to make peace with yourself." With that, she turned and left the village square with tears in her eyes. The villagers murmured among themselves, some calling for Nneoma to be punished, others expressing sympathy for the pain she has caused herself. Adaeze stepped forward, her presence commanding attention. "The spirits have heard Nneoma's confession," Adaeze said, her voice strong and clear. She had taken the first step towards redemption, but the path ahead is long and difficult. The spirit demands that she atone for her actions, not just with words, but with deeds. Nneoma looked up at Adaeze, her eyes red from crying. "What must I do, Mama Adaeze?" "You must go to the shrine of the ancestors," Adaeze instructed. "There, you will offer a sacrifice and plead for their forgiveness. If the spirits are merciful enough, they will forgive you without giving you a life punishment. But if not, just be aware that you won't die, but you will live the rest of your life single, lonely, and with no child." Nneoma, filled with tears, nodded, her mind firmed. She knew that this was the only way to make amends. She sought forgiveness not just from the gods, but from Chinyere, Ikechukwu, and the entire village. That night, Nneoma packed a small bag with provision and made her way to the shrine of the ancestors, a sacred place deep in the forest. The journey was long and tiring, but Nneoma pressed on, driven by the knowledge that she had to face the consequences of her action. When she finally arrived at the shrine, she knelt before the ancient altar, her heart heavy with guilt and sorrow. She placed an offering of kola nuts and palm wine on the altar, bowing her head in prayers. "Great ancestors," she whispered, her voice trembling, "I have come to seek your forgiveness. I have wronged those I love, and I brought suffering to my village. Please forgive me for my sins and guide me on the path to redemption." For 7 days, Nneoma remained at the shrine, fasting and praying to the gods. She slept on the cold ground. Her dreams were filled with visions of the gods, who spoke to her in riddles and parables. Each day, she reflects on her actions, her heart aching with regret. On the 7th day, as the first light of dawn broke through the tree, Nneoma heard a voice, a soft, gentle whisper, carried on the wind. "Your atonement had been rejected because the spirits of the unborn babies you took their lives, even before they could see the world, had cursed you. Because you have realized your wrongdoings and have chosen to turn a new leaf, you shall not die, but you shall remain unmarried, lonely, with no child or husband, till you die. Go home, my child, and live the rest of your life correcting the wrongs you have done in the past." Tears filled Nneoma's eyes as she bowed her head in gratitude for life and regret for her wrongdoings. When Nneoma returned to the village of Umuagwu, she was not the same woman who had left 7 days earlier. The weight of her guilt had not disappeared, but it had transformed into a resolve to do better, to atone for the wrong she had committed, The villagers watched her return with mixed emotion. Some were still angry, others were afraid, and few sympathetic. But Nneoma did not seek to win back their favor with words. She knew that only through her action could she begin to rebuild back the trust she had shattered. The path ahead was steep and rocky, but she was determined to walk it, no matter the cost. The first person she sought out upon her return was Chinyere. Nneoma found her friend sitting alone by the river bank, her expression distant as she watched the water flow by. The sight of Chinyere so broken and weary filled Nneoma with a fresh wave of guilt, but she took a deep breath and approached her anyways. Chinyere, Nneoma called softly, her voice trembling. Chinyere turned, her eyes red and swollen from crying. When she saw Nneoma, she didn't speak at first, just looked at her with a sadness so deep it made Nneoma's heart ache. "I have returned from the shrine," Nneoma said, trying to keep her voice steady. "The spirits have rejected my atonement and punished me with loneliness and childlessness for the rest of my life for my evil deeds. But I know that doesn't change what I did to you. I am not asking for your forgiveness, Chinyere. I just want you to know that I will spend the rest of my life trying to make amends." Chinyere studied Nneoma for a long moment, the silence between them thick with unspoken pain. Finally, she sighed, her voice soft and tired. "Nneoma, you were my closest friend, more like an elder sister to me. I never imagined you could hurt me like this. But I also know that jealousy can drive people to do terrible things. I can't say that I forgive you yet, but I believe that you truly regret what you have done. Maybe one day I will be able to forgive you, but it will take time." Nneoma nodded, tears peeling down her cheeks. "I understand, Chinyere. I will wait as long as it takes. And if there's anything I can do to help you, please tell me." Chinyere looked away, her gaze returning to the flowing river. "I just need time to heal, Nneoma. That's all." With a heavy heart, Nneoma left Chinyere by the river, knowing that their relationship might never be the same again. In the weeks that followed, Nneoma dedicated herself to helping the villagers in any way she could. She worked tirelessly in the farm, assisting the elders, and took on the most menial tasks without complaints. Slowly, some of the villagers began to soften towards her, though others remained distant, their trust not so easily to regain. One evening, Nneoma was approached by Ikechukwu. He had been avoiding her since her confession, his anger and grief too raw to face her. But now, he stood before her, his expression unreadable. "Nneoma," Ikechukwu said, his voice strained, "I've been thinking about what you did and why you did it. I don't know if I can ever truly forgive you for the pain you caused Chinyere and me, but I can see that you are trying to make things right. That doesn't excuse what you did, but it means something." Nneoma looked at her brother, tears welling up in her eyes. "Ikechukwu, I'm so sorry for everything. I was wrong, and I have hurt you and Chinyere in ways I can never undo. I just hope that in time you can find it in your heart to forgive me." Ikechukwu sighed, running a hand through his hair. "Forgiveness isn't easy, Nneoma, but holding on to anger forever isn't easy either. We will have to find a way to move forward for all of our sake. The gods have punished you with the unthinkable, and that should be enough." Nneoma nodded, her heart heavy yet hopeful. "Thank you, Ikechukwu. I will keep working to make things right, no matter how long it takes." As the month passes, Nneoma's dedication to atonement did not waver. She continued to work hard for the village, helping whenever she could. Slowly, the villagers began to see the change in her. Years passed, and Nneoma's life continued to change in ways that she could never have imagined. The village of Umuagu had finally accepted her back into the fold, and she had become an integral part of the community once again. Chinyere and Ikechukwu had also moved forward with their lives. Though the pain of the miscarriages has left scars on their hearts, they eventually found happiness again. One day, to the joy of the entire village, Chinyere announced that she was pregnant once more. This time, the pregnancy progressed without any complications, and as the months went by, the hope that had once been lost began to blossom anew. Nneoma, who had remained close to Chinyere and Ikechukwu, was filled with a deep sense of relief and happiness for her friend and her brother. She prayed daily for the safety of both Chinyere and the unborn child, hoping that the spirits would grant them the joy they had been denied for so long. When the time came for Chinyere to give birth, the entire village held its breath. The labor was long and difficult, but in the end, Chinyere gave birth to a healthy baby boy. The news spread through the village like wildfire, and the people of Umuagu celebrated the arrival of the new life with singing and dancing. Nneoma was among the first to visit Chinyere after the birth. As she held the tiny baby in her arms, tears filled her eyes. "He is beautiful, Chinyere," Nneoma whispered, her voice trembling with emotion. Chinyere smiled weakly, her exhaustion evident, but her joy undeniable. "Thank you, Nneoma. It means a lot to me that you are here." Nneoma gently handed the baby back to Chinyere, her heart swelling with love and gratitude. "I'm so happy for you, Chinyere. You and Ikechukwu deserve all the happiness in the world." As Nneoma watched Chinyere cuddle her newborn baby, she felt a deep sense of peace settle over her, and also a sense of sadness with the thought that she would never have the chance to experience the joy of motherhood due to the punishment from the spirits for her evil deeds. She had learned that forgiveness, both from others and from oneself, was not something that could be demanded or expected. It was a gift that had to be earned through patience, understanding, and genuine change. Over the time, Nneoma and Chinyere's friendship began to heal, though the bond they had once shared was forever altered. Thank you for always coming back to watch. Also drop at the comment section what you learned from this great story. Love you and see you soon.